So is this aggressive posturing or just saber rattling, or is President Putin serious about attacking Ukraine? Joining us on Left, Right and Centre tonight, we have Alexander Kebret. He's with the international desk editor at ZNUA. We have Mr. Vishnu Prakash, former spokesperson of the MEA, former ambassador posted in Russia and the US. And we have K.C. Singh, former secretary of the MEA, former ambassador and a strategic affairs expert. Now, Alexander Kebret, to you first. Hostilities with Ukraine and the West would be advantageous for Russia, for Vladimir Putin's need for a popularity boost ahead of, the 2024 Russian presidential elections. But how are the Ukrainian people perceiving the current state of affairs, and what are they prepared to do in order to protect their national sovereignty?
Hello, Sarah. Hello, other guests. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your questions. So, the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian military are going to be prepared. So just recently, Kyiv mayor, where I'm standing in the capital of Ukraine, he said that all of the bomb shelters and all of the buses just for the possible evacuation is already ready. Every route is ready, like go in, evacuate people just in case of Kyiv invasion, ready going towards the western part of Ukraine. So every region of Ukraine is collecting the territorial defense, collecting out of voluntary, basically mostly men, but also women who are like joined this kind of military unit, like semi-military unit, and voluntarily. So it's almost complete in every region, and Kyiv basically it's already completed. And the people do not really fear here, because we used to live with those threats from Russia for the last eight years. So we've been going through all of those actions at the border. Like every month we have something, but not as huge as we have right now. So it's a massive number of troops of Russia Federation and in our borders, even in Belarus and in Crimea, in our southern region, which is occupied by Russia. Also in the eastern part of Ukraine, it's so-called Donbas region. So we have also Russian troops over there. So they could kind of encircling Russia from the part. Yeah, but Ukrainians are really well prepared for that.
All right. K.C. Singh, let me ask you, you heard Alexander Kebret then, and he pointed out something that is, an interesting fact. The fact is that this is not new. This kind of face-off between Russia and Ukraine has been going on for 8 years now. So what has changed suddenly that has led to, this new stance, a more confrontational stance on the side of the U.S., Joe Biden, Germany still being relatively soft, as some would put it, maybe one way to put it, soft on Russia right now? What's changed?
Nobody knows. They've been trying to decipher the mind of Putin. From one stand, they are saying that he may be isolated. It may be just the post-COVID kind of isolation. Other one is the madman theory, that you just pretend to be mad and get away with a bluff. And that is the kind of bluff that President Biden is trying to explode. And that's why he said, we know you're going to do it. And that's more like a warning to him. But it's given the Western alliance time to get all the allies together. But so far, Putin hasn't blinked. Now, what does he want? Does he just want security guarantees? Does he want the Minsk agreement to be implemented? That's a 7-year agreement, which requires certain things to be done by the Russians and certain things to be done by the Ukrainians, which is internally give more autonomy to the two eastern provinces in the Donbas region. Now, if it is that, it's a question of choreographing it. But then we've just seen at the Munich conference, Ukrainian President Zelensky has just said, and that's breaking news, that I need a timetable to join NATO. Now, this would be a red line for Putin, because if you want a security guarantee, you want a demilitarized zone. You don't want NATO to come up to his border. So it's, I think at the moment it is jostling. They're trying to, tell each other that these are the red lines, don't cross them. Naturally, Europeans don't want to have Putin in a way control the destiny of Ukraine and say you can't take certain decisions. But it's very interesting to see that the Chinese ambassador has in Ukraine, in Kyiv, has written a letter where has written a newspaper op-ed in which he said that they would respect the sovereignty and integrity of Ukraine. So that is a signal to Russia that if you attack them, even the Chinese may have to disagree with that, because that is in line with the traditional Chinese principle of, countries living within their own boundaries. So Putin has at some stage to back off. Now, we've seen some artillery exchanges in the eastern provinces. We saw a scare being spread where the Russians are telling the people the Ukraine is about to attack you, and therefore you return now to Russia. Russia, meanwhile, has given a lot of citizenship to almost 700,000, almost nearly 1 million people there.
Yeah.
So this has got complicated. And now with Zelensky saying that he will not accept, he wants a timetable to join NATO, I think that's another red line.
So
we don't know where it's going.
So, Mr. Vishnu Prakash, isn't this counterproductive? What does Russia stand to gain? Because we're already seeing a bolstered NATO on Europe's eastern flank, which goes against what Russia wants right now. And it seems to be that these steps are actually pushing Ukraine to embrace NATO further.
Sarah, good evening and nice to be on the program with you. There is a presumption here that Russia is trying to grab Ukraine. I see it very differently. Granted, Russia was quite unhappy that Ukraine was going out of its orbit. Whether you like it or do not like it, whether you deny it or accept it, the sphere of influence concept very much exists. Now, Russia has seen the writing on the wall. 1999, first phase of eastward expansion of NATO, 2004, the second. And they have realized that that cannot be rolled back. But they will not, if they can help it, allow Ukraine to get into the Americans or the Western sphere of influence. They do not want to occupy Ukraine. All they want is that their security interests are not jeopardized by if NATO were to join, if Ukraine were to join NATO, and let's say the NATO missiles were stationed in Ukraine, that is a red line. That's a no-go. So they will try their best to ensure that their legitimate security interests, and I'm using the word legitimate carefully, because they actually do have security interests. But it seems that the Western countries, especially the US, is almost daring Russia to do some things, to stage some misadventure. And they are claiming that the Western allies are at one in this approach, but that is not the case. Clearly, Germany and France understand the complexities. They understand that the danger, and which is the theater where this the conflict will happen. It will not happen across the Atlantic. It will happen in Ukraine. The ramifications will be felt by Europe. And what is the need? I mean, the basic question that needs to be asked is, why eastward expansion of NATO? Why is it that Russia is being threatened? Why is it that Russia is being dared? I would end by saying that even the US recognizes that the biggest threat to the world is China. So why the Russian bogey? Why not deal with China, push back China, and show some strategic accommodation to Russia? Because it is no longer Soviet Union. It is not a threat to NATO. But, there is this Cold War-like attitude, which is hard to understand as far as I am concerned.
All right. So is the West actually united? Before I come to you, KC Singh, on that and Germany's stand, Alexander Kebreth, you're in Kyiv, and the US believes the attack, when it happens, which they say is any time now, will begin with Kyiv. What are the reactions you're getting on the ground to the reaction we've gotten, the latest reaction from Germany, from the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who said that nothing justifies this huge deployment of soldiers around Ukraine? Germany has till now had a relatively softer line on Russia refusing to send weapons to Ukraine. Is that changing? Is that the perception on the ground in Kyiv?
The same saying the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense and Ukrainian Ukrainian president. So Russia is stating that they are withdrawing forces, but we don't see it on the places next to our border. But also, we don't see, our Ministry of Defense doesn't see too much troops like ready for invasion, let's say. Yeah, and on the ground, people are an establishment. They are, of course, have quite of anxiety because of that, but we are watching carefully, and our establishment and our government is watching carefully. That's what we do for the last 8 years, and so we will keep on doing this. And Olaf Scholz is saying the things like he was previously saying, like today in Munich security conference, but he was saying this like in the last weekend, 2 weeks ago, and all the same. He's just repeating his own words. But if you read the German media, who are like citing the sources from the German intelligence, they saying that they say for the first time, the Spiegel wrote that invasion is going to be on February 16. Now they are saying that invasion is going to be this night, so February 20. So we will see. We'll see. So far,
a difficult time to be there on the ground in Kyiv. Stay safe, Alexander. We look forward to more reports from you. But KC Singh, I want to just quickly bring in that whole Germany angle that I was trying to raise with Alexander there. Is the West actually united on this, or is the elephant in the room the Nord Stream 2? I only have a minute left, so I just want to give you the closing line on this.
No, absolutely correct. Now, Germans have finally said that if the sanctions come in, then Nord Stream 2 is endangered. And so it's not a question just of missiles or of occupation or this and that. The Russians are afraid of a functioning democracy there. They have forcibly occupied Crimea in 2014 by sending irregulars in. They've come into the parts of Ukraine where people of Russian origin are there. And the other two provinces are destabilized. Two eastern provinces of Ukraine. So therefore, it's a question of, is Putin just wanting simply guarantees, or it's larger than that, that you don't want a functioning democracy on your borders, something as successful as Poland, and therefore tomorrow EU may want to be extended to that, etc. So that itself is also a danger to Putin, because a functioning democracy is an example to the Russian people.
Mr. Prakash, I know you want to say something, so 30 seconds to you.
Well, thank you. All I would like you to consider, and your viewers, as to what would Putin gain by waging an aggression against Ukraine. They would not gain anything. There will be a blowback. The strategic objectives of Putin are served by letting the West know that this is a red line. And Zelensky also knows that getting into NATO is very difficult, but these are maximalist positions which are staked out.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. The deadlock continues. We will continue to focus on this. Thank you for your time tonight. Bye-bye.
Thank you.